Welcome to Business Spotlight, and I'm joined today by Simon Neale, and Simon is the founder of Poet Branding. It's nice to see you, Simon. Welcome to the call.
And you, Gavin. I'm pleased to be here.
Interesting title for a company, Poet Branding. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, Simon.
Uh, Poet branding was formed from an idea that was spawned way back when I was working for large agencies in London, but traditional graphic design agencies built on a very hierarchical structure with many levels of management and assistant services and plug bolt-on peripheral offers they could and it just became unwieldy. And most companies I worked for got to a point where they would either people would fragment and break off into smaller companies, or they would be, if they were lucky, be bought out and then subsumed into even bigger companies. And I saw that there was an opportunity to work, to have a different model with design, and that was all about collaborating with other experts in their field. And by putting this sort of what we call the hub and spoke model together, where one person, by myself, becomes the hub, and we have many spokes, and as many spokes on that wheel as we would need to service a client project. So I broke out on, said goodbye to the agency life and started my own business,
Yeah.
and it sort of chimed with the rise of the internet and the rise of communications and technology, which allowed us to work with people from around the globe really, really easily.
So collaborations are really important
It's absolutely
concept.
critical, yeah. And it's the way the world is sort of moving on. Unless you make the big quantum leap into a giant company, and I'm talking, like say for design agencies, that's 100 plus people. That's a big, big organization. Most don't even get close to that.
Yeah.
Um, I think there was someone once said that any organization, gets to about 100 people. It's like a village. You can't network together more than that amount of people without losing control of the periphery. It
Yeah.
it it, it becomes unwieldy.
And I
Anyway, so I
think,
chose poet branding
yeah,
because poetry is about seeing things in a different way. It's about making the usual, the ordinary magical and exciting. It's sort of using it's a different view of the world.
yeah, no, that I mean, and that makes perfect sense. And you're in a creative industry, but you're bringing a systems solution to the challenge. And I noticed when I was doing my research on your website, you have this wonderful quote that is, a man with a hammer sees the problem as a nail.
Yeah,
and and it sounds to me that collaboration really goes beyond just sharing ideas, but it's also challenging thinking, because if you bring a particular perception to a design or to a solution, it's going to be filtered by your own experiences. Where if other people can bring other perceptions in, then you can start to have a conversation and maybe start to think a little bit more broader about the project
yeah,
that you're trying to do.
precisely. That if you might meet someone at a party or a networking event or whatever it may be, and if you're running an agency or any kind of business, and let's say you're a window cleaner, and you're kind of hell bent on saying, "Oh, I think you need your windows cleaned." You're pre-programmed to start
Yeah,
selling what you do,
yeah,
rather than saying, "What's your problem?"
yeah,
What keeps you up at night? What's the issue that you face within your business?
yeah.
And to see if there are ways of helping them solve that problem. And it may not be directly with what my skill base is, but it might be tangential to that, or it may be that there's collaboration.
Yeah.
I can say, "Oh, actually, I know someone who
Yeah.
does that."
And an opportunity for your skill base to develop even further, take on
Completely.
new
Yeah, yeah,
skills.
yeah. Keep learning. Yeah,
Yeah, keep
absolutely.
learning. No, that's really, really interesting. When people talk about bringing new solutions to problems, the place where they tend to go these days is straight to AI. Let's put it into Chat GPT. Let's put it into AI. Let's find other things. What's your experience of AI in your industry at the moment? Where's that operating?
AI was, I think, about 2 years ago, was just a kind of rumor on the wind. It was a kind of, oh, this is something's coming. It's going to be earth-shattering and it's life-changing. And then all of a sudden, it's here and it's part of life and it's part. Now, I remember when the first Apple Macs were released into the UK, and we've got some in the studio I was working at the time, and everyone sitting around kind of looked at them and thought, "What are we going to do with these? What can they do?" And for a while, because the technology could do something, i.e., it could make things look very glossy and shiny and bendy, and the whole of the design industry fell in love with that aesthetic and went to town with it. And it was driven by the technology. AI now is driving a sense of speed, one, democratization, two, like everybody can be a designer. You could run a business, and this is what's lowering and devaluing the skills of a real designer
Yeah.
to the pure aesthetics. It's just, what does it look like? So people can knock up an Instagram post, or they can just ask for a logo, just ask, Mid-Journey for a logo, to design me a logo, and it's probably good enough for a lot of people. It's just that's all they need. So obviously, designers can spot a lot of AI instantly. There's a look and an aesthetic that you can instantly see that it's been computer generated. Now, obviously, that's going to get better, but it is still just a tool. It's still just a way of generating images and marks and text, and it's a tool to get a job done. And the secret is understanding what the problem is and understanding how to solve that problem, not pre-programming it into an AI model. And I was thinking about this, about how we use it and why is it restrictive. AI is only as good as the prompts that you put in. It's like teaching a child to drive a car.
Yeah.
It can't learn it by itself. And AI has an incredibly narrow view of the world because all it's doing is trying to predict what you wanted by saying, I want a tree with red leaves on it in an orchard with a farmhouse in the background. It's trying to create the amalgam of all the cliches it thinks this is where you want to go. It's not thinking of something totally original. It's just compiling it's like predictive spelling. It's a kind of a model. It's just working out what the likelihood is, what it is you need. Now,
I can see the problem in that. I can see the opportunity that AI can leverage and speed things up for certain people, but I'm on the same page as you. As a business coach, when I'm working with my clients, I get very frustrated when, for example, we're talking about marketing and they will come in with the marketing things they could do. It's like going into a sweet shop and picking the sweets off the shelf, or going into a toolbox and taking the tools. When the real challenge is to start with the objectives and then the strategy. So I think what you're saying is akin to that. It's saying that if you want a proper design, you've got to be really clear what that design is for, what its purpose is about, etc.
When we work on any particular project, it's a lot of cerebral thinking and understanding before you ever go near making marks. Is saying, here's a business problem. I always read about this. When I first started in the design industry, designers were called commercial artists, and I kind of think that was probably a better description of what we do, because the commerce side of things is absolutely at the sharp end. It's critical. This is a business. It's not aesthetes. It's not artists creating wonderful, decorative patterning.
Yeah.
It is a business, and it's using design, it's using imagery and language to perform a commercial task.
Absolutely.
And without commerce, there is no business. It becomes fine art, or it becomes, a hobby.
Yeah.
So the commerce side of it, the actual business, design is there just to serve a business, and it's to produce. And if it doesn't serve that business and produce results, it is useless. might look good, but if it doesn't
So
sell, it's
it sounds as though there's two elements to your work. There's not just the actual production of the design, but even before you get to that, there's the conversation with the business about what it is they are trying to achieve. So you're bringing your expertise and your knowledge and your insights to a conversation, and from that conversation, the design takes shape.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be a creative brief. It's not about an aesthetic brief. It is about a deliverables, why you need to do this, because otherwise, why spend the money?
But is that creative brief a collaborative exercise, or do you take what the customer has given you?
No, it's always a collaborative
It's always
build. You
collaborative.
always understand. I mean, what is it? Some people say, "Oh, my grandma used to say you've got two ears and one mouth for a reason." Do more listening than you do talking. It's use it's understanding the problem that you're there to solve.
Yes.
And design does a very good job of solving it. And think we're all very adept at decoding design. We get it quickly. We've had, you know, all our lives being taught about the visual imagery and the way we decode the world. But we can see bad design and we can also see good design.
So if you're talking to an SME, small business, who are sort of stepping into the design, branding, design kind of thing for the first time, and they're aware of AI and they're aware of all these potential shortcuts and everything else, what would your message be to them?
To see design as a tool to translate their commercial objectives and their brand message, whatever they're selling, whether that be a can of fizzy pop or a chain to go on a bicycle, whatever. There is we break it down into really simple. The three, it's who am I, what am I, and why am I for you? Who am I is, of course, creating something that is recognizable and stands out in the market, that separates you from the other. And that's quite a simple stage one. It's creating something unique and ownable, distinctive and appropriate. Because anybody can be distinctive, but it might not be appropriate. It kind of might be stand out for the wrong reasons. So who am I? What am I? Is it clear about what you're selling? What does the customer, regardless of whether this is B2B or B2C, or is the customer aware of what you're selling? Is it clear? Is it clear what problem you solve? And then why am I for you? That's where the seduction comes in. That's where the kind of a bit more magic. That becomes how you do your business and why you're better, why they should choose you. And that may be because you've got a very it's unusual, but if you've got a product or a service that is completely distinct from the other, that's great. It's kind of easier to translate because it sells itself if you've got something that you see. But we live in a world of product parity where everything, there's a lot of competition. So you have to do the seduction. Why am I for you? Why would you want to buy into this product, service, group, tribe? Why would you want to become part? People like to belong to sort of, they say people like me do things like this or buy products like this. And so that's where some of the more creative side comes in. It's about seeking that distinct message, that seduction of the customer.
I think not just from a design side and AI issues all aside, I think that advice is very solid advice for any business to be thinking about those three questions. It's a very, very solid foundation for thinking and looking at your business through your customer's eyes.
Simon, that's a very interesting point you've just made there, Gavin, that seeing your business is lots of people when they start businesses or selling a product, they see it, that they come from themselves out towards the customer and they don't realize the customer comes entirely the opposite way. They don't see the product or sample, but let's say if it's a food stuff, a drink, something. The last thing they do is taste the drink. The customers come from maybe social media, maybe it's come from advertising, maybe they've seen sampling in the street or on the shelf in a supermarket. They might have seen posters, they might have seen whatever else you're doing. And then they see the packaging, which is we call your handshake with the customer, because the thing they touch, it's the thing they pick up and interact with. And the last thing they do is try the drink. And you've got to have convinced them by that stage, by the time they picked it up, to spend whatever they've got to spend on it. And they give someone
Love
£2
that.
that drink. You
I
know.
love that. And I love that analogy. The last thing they do is taste the drink. Simon, you're in a very fast moving space. What do you think the future may bring in the design industry in the sort of short to medium term?
I think there's a bit of a crisis, meaning in terms of the design industry needs to really understand the value it's selling and the value of experience and wisdom, and see it as a business rather than being a nice to have and full of bearded, beanie wearing kind of people who are out to just draw things they like. Just it's a kind of creative. So I think the industry where advertising succeeded in the 70s, 80s, maybe the 90s, it really saw itself as a partner to businesses.
Yeah.
Big brands went to advertising agencies as brand partners and saw design as a bit of an afterthought. It's the decorative bit on the other end. So I think the democratization of the tools of production allows people to do it themselves, much like the music industry, when it was hard to get, difficult to do, and rare. You couldn't listen to music everywhere. We valued it. When it's everywhere, everybody can practically program something in or make music if they seem to. We don't value music nearly as highly as we used to.
Yeah.
And designers may be facing a bit of a crisis that it's going the same way, that it's proliferated. So everybody has got a tool in their pocket on a phone that can do some design. And the tools will allow them to make fairly convincing versions of design. So it's going to be hard for design to maintain a sense of value in the world.
I think I would. I guess it's the liberty I can do as the host, but I think I would paraphrase what you're saying as have fun, get serious, sell on value. And I think something like that would, whatever happens in the next few years, it is about enjoying what you do, but it's also seeing that it is a business and it has to compete like many other businesses against, the DIY kind of mentality that's coming into.
Yeah, and I think that's not only true of design. I think it's true of television and
music, everything.
Media, everything we consume as content. Everything's seen as content, and everything moves incredibly quickly. And so it is about ideas. People will have new ideas, and we will still be consumers. So there will still be a need. I've seen that, it's whether what the size of businesses are, whether there will be big businesses doing it in the future.
Simon, thank you very much for your time and sharing your insights. There's been an awful lot in there. We'll find a few snippets, I'm sure, to share. But thank you very much for your share and your time today. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great.